welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au, and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ouspenskaya.
Thank you, Chris, for a warm welcome, and I'm so happy to see everyone logging in for the next part. That's a transition to the next movement. I'm so curious.
Yeah, and we will be your hosts for today. We will do some watching of the part 3 of the documentary of the Beethoven's Symphony No. 8, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, as well as produced by the Architects of Music. And then we'll provide some commentary on this video and on this wonderful symphony.
Thank you so much for this incredible collaboration. It's been made possible because we all share a passion for connecting musicians and audiences in real-time musical performances and programs like this one from around the globe.
You might recall how in the Seventh Symphony, the second movement began with that somber A minor chord in the winds and horns, with the second horn, E, the dominant note, as the lowest voice. Well, the second movement of the Eighth also begins with a woodwind horn chord, also with the second horn as the lowest voice, also on the dominant note, which happens to be F in this case. But instead of a solemn proclamation, as in the Seventh, the Eighth Symphony's opening chord does this. Well, a lovely intermezzo that just tiptoes along. It's very charming. And it's almost a continuation of the first movement, where the majesty and the sweep of the dance unexpectedly receded into an echo of itself. And that grandiose, robust quality of the first movement is now replaced by a whimsical sense of humor, this delicate ticking effect. One of Haydn's London symphonies is subtitled The Clock because of this rhythmic figure in its second movement. And in fact, the second movement of Beethoven's is supposedly a humorous homage to Johann Melzel and his new invention, the metronome, which fascinated Beethoven. But the real homage, I think, is to Beethoven's mentor Haydn, whether intentional or not. And this delectable spirit, the humor and sense of joy, will infuse the rest of this symphony. And this could have easily been written 20 years earlier by Haydn. And I know I said that Haydn's influence on Beethoven faded sometime earlier, but his presence is unmistakable here, especially in Beethoven's use of that tiny, fleeting three-note motive. We'll call it X. It'll be the second movement's X. And it never stops in this movement, which now takes the place of the symphony's typical slow movement. There is no slow movement in Beethoven's Eighth. Structurally, this second movement is a two-part sonata movement. That is, an exposition with three themes or groups of themes, but no central development section. It proceeds directly to the recapitulation, and then there's a coda, part of the reason for this movement's brevity. But it's exactly the right length and character for this symphony. So let's look at it. Our charming melody is heard 3 times. First, it's in the tonic key of B flat major. to which the cello and bass respond, also built on the X motive. Taking a little detour into G minor. And now the theme, the second time, a bit more wistful because of the minor key. Again, the cello and the bass in their ascending X response. Now in E flat, the subdominant key. But now the third phrase is cut short. And you hear how the little X motive is continually bounced back and forth between high and low strings. Then compressed. Then it's used as a repeated cadence, emphasizing the subdominant chord, like so. And all the while the in the winds is pecking away. It takes a lickin' and keeps on tickin'. And Beethoven is having the time of his life here, even though he was now almost completely deaf. And the love of his life, his immortal beloved, had just left Vienna and returned to Frankfurt for good with her husband. It was one of those classic romantic era doomed love affairs from afar. And both the Seventh and Eighth Symphonies were written during this crucial emotional period in Beethoven's life. But the Eighth was largely composed after the final farewell. But there's not a trace of the pain in this amazing music. So the first theme now has just ended with the tick-tock thing continues in the winds, and the mischievous X motive scampers around from bottom to top, leading to our exuberant but rather four-square second theme in the dominant key of F major. With X in the bass under it, the metronome still going, and this theme ends now in a brief cadence, like so. A cadence that can only be described as explosive. Spontaneous combustion, and the stops. It's been blown to bits, I think. But those little two-note fragments that you heard rise from the ashes to keep the rhythmic motion going. And this second theme group now ends with a lovely lyrical passage that has an old-world gentility to it.
Well, that is delightful. You really feel like after the Seventh Symphony, the Fifth Symphony, maybe, it's just all downhill and like just drama and drama. But no, I think Beethoven reminds everyone that he has a sense of humor. And,
He's a whimsical sense of humor. And I love
yeah.
how our team of the film directors and producers responded to that with this is just such a cool picture of the metronome going in and then exploding, and then there's a shelf in there with no metronome.
Yeah, it's
Isn't that
brilliant.
funny?
That's brilliant. So I mean, it's interesting how we can use music for humor. It's just like such an interesting idea. I don't know how many times I've listened to Haydn, for example, and there's a little smile that comes to your face when that happens, and I think that like this homage that Beethoven plays to not just the clock but also to the metronome is just it's just hilarious. It's fantastic. Like I wonder, like our producer was talking to us about how what was Beethoven inspired by? And I really don't know. I mean, no one really knows at all. But what we can really ascertain is that Beethoven, like we said before, was really a composer who encompassed a lot of different emotions, a lot of different aspects of life. It wasn't just a very singular side. He wasn't just like, let's say, writing nocturnes or some beautiful second movements. He was writing all these things. And to be fair, a second movement doesn't usually sound like that.
Not
Like
at
a
all.
second, no, a second movement, you're usually expecting something a lot slower than andante, maybe andante con morto, but never really allegretto scherzando. Really, that's a third movement sort of
Right.
tempo marking,
It's
wouldn't
yeah,
you
it's
say?
almost like Beethoven is looking around and saying, okay, what else can I have fun with? And
Yeah.
there are some composers who look for shocking effect or surprising effect or intimate effect, whatever that effect is. With Beethoven, it just all seems so genuine. It's almost like he's writing for himself. Just like what else can I have fun with? And the humor in here is like last time when we were on the program, Chris, you were talking about there are some people who can really tell the joke. I'm not one of them, that's for sure. But
Me
there's some people who
neither. Yeah.
try,
Yeah.
and they always go like, mm-hmm, haha, yeah, that was a good joke, right?
Yeah. There
And
are people who really know how to get you into the it's also like there are people who are magicians and they know exactly how to tell the whole story to get you to follow the wrong hand for your eyes to go somewhere else and you don't know and suddenly it's gone. I think that's kind of the genius also if we talk about the timelessness of Beethoven. If you have someone who's never heard Beethoven before or any kind of classical music, let's say, listen to this movement, they would have a little smile on their face, I would think. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun. It's not that serious. It goes through different keys. Of course, it's like a G minor section and this and that, but it's never really that morose or tragic. I think it's very universal in that sense. And yeah, you're right that it's boiled down to the fact that he can tell really good joke, or he really knows how to set up this whole story.
yeah, set up the joke and then throw a punchline of the joke, and all of that is wordless. Let's not forget, it's all
Yes.
done by using sounds, just the sounds. It's incredible how the sounds can be funny, and it's not like okay, like in your kindergarten, someone goes and
Yeah.
everybody laughs. It's
Yeah.
different. It's all sophisticated composition, kind of combination of sounds, and they still make us feel like we just heard a great joke.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I can imagine um was probably inspired by opera, I would say. That there's some sort of sense that, like, I know it's a little bit later in than Beethoven, but like Rossini, in his sort of humorous uh, uh, comedy operas, he probably, and someone like Mozart also, there's this incredible sense of humor, and there's these actors and I guess singers on stage, singer actors who are trying to show the humor too, but it's not the same with the music. I think that the power of music, I think Beethoven captures the power of music very, very well. Because it's funny, have you seen these videos where they'll play like a horror movie scene, but the music's totally different? It's like some really funny music, and it's not scary. Like you're not scared by all the things that pop out and like the murderer hiding behind the person. You're not scared. But what makes it scary is actually the absence of this sort of music, this sort of creepiness and like other sounds that kind of get you feeling, oh, that's a ghost or there's a shadow there. Oh, there's a flurry of wind. Oh, that's very scary. And so
Yeah,
I think, yeah,
and I think Beethoven was also a master of silence, not in this
yes,
particular movement, but he was very much aware of the transition from silence to sound and sudden lack of sound. He definitely treated the rest, and he puts in the music as a silent note or something like that. So his keen interest in that um, friction
Yeah.
between the presence of a sound and the absence of one. Also makes makes a connection, of course, with Haydn, because Haydn was also
Yes.
masterful at using the articulation to play around between the sounds and the silence.
Now you
And
know that Haydn knew how to tell a good story and a good joke. You can tell. Like if someone and I think someone who can probably interpret Haydn very well is probably someone who can also tell a very good joke. And it's just part of, I guess, being a performer as well. There's this idea of a there's two thoughts that came to mind when you were talking about this idea of the humor. The first was, which I think when Beethoven premiered this symphony, I can imagine people were like muttering and kind of chatting amongst themselves because they're like, "This is kind of funny. What's happening here?" And I think they felt comfortable in the setting to be kind of like, "Hey, well, that's kind of funny. Look," and then Beethoven or whoever's conducting it just also has a smile on their face. Whereas now we just have to like. That's probably a funny movement, and you're not really sure whether you can laugh or not. And I think a lot about also some like I recently have heard like Andre Schiff playing some Haydn, and he again knows exactly how to sort of wait a little bit and do that little staccato and little things that sort of just give that humor. The Diabelli variations are full of humor as well, and Beethoven also wrote those. And I think in the end, what really makes the music timeless or the music powerful is its ability to make you feel something. And I think Beethoven is able to distill what it is that makes you feel something, whether it is the transcendental high notes in like a final late sonata or something as humorous as this.
yeah, and this is a very good question we got posted on screen right now. What about serious music term that often gets attributed to classical music? And this is a very powerful topic because attribution of that term, serious music, actually turns a lot of people away from even sampling classical music. And a lot of times people may enjoy a very famous tune, and they may not even know that that is the quote unquote serious music. And this sort of labeling the classical music as serious music and some other music as not serious music is just so misleading. In Beethoven's time, I don't think there was even such a thing as serious and not serious. There was just good music and bad music. And then
I think, by the way, I love that thought because even now, if you all music should be in a way serious music, and I don't mean that as in you listen to it with a serious look on your face, but serious as in you take very seriously the kind of music that you create, whether you're a part of a rock band or you're in jazz or you're in any Broadway musical. If it's actually taken seriously and there's a craft to it, oh, it's fantastic music, and there are songs that are written by modern contemporaries in hip hop that can be termed as serious music because it's crafted very well and it can take it seriously. And I think the composers probably took it very seriously too. So this idea that music is this sort of somber and serious thing, I think it should be for all genres, not just classical music for one. And what makes music really great is very different from what makes music very serious.
yeah, absolutely. But maybe that's such a good line. Chris, we're going to have to ask our directors to put it somewhere in script,
Boom! Yeah.
engrave. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's so true. And of course, to create anything good is hard, takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of honing your skills of creating in general. And you do create a bunch of garbage before you come up with anything worth other people's attention. And it's not only in art, in just any activity, it needs to be taken very seriously, day to day, to day, in
Yeah.
order to have the product which is timeless, like this symphonies, Beethoven symphonies. And I wish the world would just ditch that term, serious music, attributed to classical music, because it's not really communicating anything significant or anything meaningful. other than making everyone who just wants to maybe enjoy the sounds or music completely turned away. Well, if I'm in for just a 15-minute break, do I want something serious?
Yeah,
Nah.
I think it's very important as a performer or a person who's a music student or interpreter to really take the music that they're playing seriously. Like this is a great piece of art that ought to be taken seriously. And I don't just mean that for classical music, it could be for, like I said, before any genre. But for the listener, that it shouldn't come off as serious. It should come off for them as something that's very enjoyable. I think often about movies that you want to go see again and again and again. And yeah, maybe it's sometimes a very serious movies about war and all that sometimes. But a lot of times the movies you want to see again and again, or even the TV shows you see time and time again, they're brilliant in their own ways, and yet it's just joyful. It's enjoyable to watch. It's something that offers humor. You think about the great Christmas movies, how many of them are really that serious, but what we do want in a really good Christmas movie is something that's delightful, is there's humor, but there's also a message, some meaning to impart from it. And I think that's what great art does. Like I said, like great music, very different from serious music or taking music too seriously, but it's still this idea that you can make and appreciate something great without having to be so serious all the time. And I think Beethoven is like, okay, I've shown I can be serious, and Symphony Number 8, I'm just gonna have some fun with it, because deep in my subconscious, I'm brewing Symphony Number 9, and that is yeah.
Well,
Wait till
Symphony
you
number
see
nine
that.
is not deprived of humorous moments
No,
either.
no, but it's like wait till you see what I've got in store for you.
But that's so true. Yeah, and music can be uplifting regardless of its complexity. Yes,
Yeah,
of course, Beethoven's music is very complicated. It has tons of different elements which require lifelong dedication to craft in order for anyone to create anything even remotely coming close to this sort of symphonic picture as he created in the eighth. Even in this small movement,
yeah.
the ideas which come in there and the surprises and the unusual use of form and all the elements he puts in there, this is the result of lifelong dedication to experimenting and crafting it. And that's a very serious activity.
Yeah.
But at the
I
same time, the result of it and the purpose, I'm sure he had the purpose. He couldn't have created such an uplifting movement without purposefully aiming at the humor and the lightness and the joy and the smile and the giggle in there. It wouldn't come out that way if he didn't aim at that.
and do you know what? Like I have a question. Is there a particular piece of music or maybe that always put a smile on your face? Is there some piece of music that you really find as it's full of this sort of charm and wit?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's an excellent question. How about I compile a list for our next program? And so do you, and we compare the notes.
Yeah.
Because it's like you ask the question and boom, I feel like my brain exploded like that metronome did
Yeah.
on the screen a few minutes ago. And I was like, where do you turn? I need to catch all these birds
Yeah.
flying out of
Yeah.
titles of the pieces which do give a giggle or a smile or a laugh even.
Yeah, we'll come up with a list. But one that comes to mind is Marc-Andre Hamelin's compositions. I don't know if you heard some of his like Paganini variations. A lot of it it's definitely difficult to play, but he plays it with such ease, and it's always so funny. He does all these different things with it that make it kind of stupid sounding, but it's really difficult, but also really funny because you can hear it. And I think ultimately, like I like to think that if you can perform a concert and make people feel a range of these emotions, I think then you've really done a good job of being a performer and an artist. I think that's the ultimate goal, to make people feel things, and I think Beethoven does a really good job of that. So
He
does our
definitely does.
yeah, and so do our producers who make these videos. So a big hand to our team and collaborators for coming up with this, and just I really, really appreciate how much detail that is put into and how much thought is in this. So thank you, New Media Productions, Virtual Concert Halls, Architects of Music, and of course, Larry Rapchak.
And thank you very much to all of our collaborators and sponsors and everyone who is supporting these programs. It's just such a joy to be working with these wonderful people and to be beneficiary of them giving their hand to us, their expertise, their time, and the resources to continue going forward with this series of Beethoven Symphonies programs and many, many other series of various programs which we are able to produce for everyone who is visiting any of the major platforms and any of the 50 plus channels of curated platforms where our programs are visible, and coming also soon on FAST channel, FAST. Go Google what that is.
Okay, fantastic. And with that, we are so happy that you're able to join us. We'll see you next time for part 4 of a Beethoven 8 documentary series. See you then.
And don't forget to compile that list of music
Yes.
which makes you smile and giggle. Bye now.